Hey guys, welcome to OE Repair University. Now, as you can tell, well, we're inside the training in the conference room today, and there's no Mark and Larry. If you were watching online last week, we kind of announced that we are renovating the studio and making some changes. We'll be turning into kind of some full-time schools. We're going to have some week-long estimating classes and some other things. So this week it's just me sitting down, and we'll be talking about the 2018 Kia Sorento. I'm just to be full out honest with you, this is an OE who, as I research, I struggle with. Things aren't where I want them. Things aren't where they're linked. And then there's some gaps in some procedures and some things, and we're going to hit that specifically by talking about the side impact. So why the Kia Sorento? Well, odds are if you are repairing or working at a shop that is not a dealer specific or brand specific, you're going to see those. So in 2018, Kia Sorento sales were up 8% over the year. And to date right now, they're up 9.8% over where they were last year as well. So the Sorento is selling. It's a medium-sized SUV. The price point is under $25,000. And so we see a lot of these on the market. Now, I want to take a little bit at the damage of the Kia that we selected. We did select a side impact. We're going to try throughout the year to bounce around between front, side, rear impacts to get a little bit of a different flavor for what we're researching. But this particular Kia had a glancing blow, kind of did hit the wheel. We're going to stay out of suspension for this episode just to make it go a little bit faster for you. Most of the impact was into the right, to the left rear door, as you can see. And you can tell we've got, based on the gaps that we've got up at the top of the door to the quarter glass, that it's a pretty significant hit. So we're going to have to be thinking about some push-in, some structural damage, where the door would have impacted the striker. We're also going to be thinking about damage down into the rocker as well. So beyond just the replacement or obvious replacement of this door, we've got some potential structure that we can see there. In addition, as you can see from the first picture and from the second, this impact did involve the deployment of the airbags. The side curtain bag and the driver's seat bag did deploy in this accident. So we have a deployment issue. It's going to involve our SRS systems, pretensioners, bags, etc., and the procedures that we need to do there. So for the Kia Sorento, what are my sources of information? Well, as we've covered all of last year and this year, I have a couple of different sources of information. And we are going to apply those to 4 separate departments of the body shop that we see. So we have your estimating, your estimators, your body procedures, which we would say is our technician. Refinish for our painters. We need to get our painters thinking about OE procedures and using them and referring to them in the repair process. And then the calibrations department. You're going to hear us say all this year that there is a new job position in your facility, and it is scanning and calibrations. A little less involved with the Kia than we have seen with some of the others, but needless to say, there's some tooling and equipment we're going to need to look at. All right, so as the estimator, well, what do I need to know? And when do I need to know it? And so you hear us say this over and over all year long, every time we do a speech, everywhere we go. You need to know absolutely everything about that vehicle, and you need to know it right now. So that's before you go to the car. That's before you start writing the first line of your estimate. You have got to start thinking about what all is going to be involved in this car for a couple of different reasons. One, well, obviously this is a total loss. So now we know that we're writing an estimate in a completely different frame set of mind for the total loss on this vehicle. But also, if it's repairable, are we capable? Do we have the tooling and equipment? Are we knowledgeable on the processes? Can we do all the scanning and calibration that's required? Would it require logistics issues? Do I need to send this vehicle out? So what are my driving questions as an estimator? Now, at some point before I actually walk to the car and start entering my first lines, I've already got an idea of what the damage is, just like we did as we discussed our initial thoughts and perceptions on those pictures. What was my direction and travel of the damage? What are my substrates involved? Are there any non-repairable substrates? Are there any requirements against pulling and frame correction? Will it require replacement of any panels? What are my collision inspection requirements? So in other words, are there general must-do on every vehicle that's involved in a collision, whether that be seat belts or road testing or anything that we need to know? What are my panel repairability limitations or opportunities? What are the ADAS systems or ADAS systems that are involved in this vehicle, and what is it equipped with? When we talk about SRS, we're also talking about more than just airbags, but into the seat belts. Are there any one-time use parts? And then calibrations always, are we capable and competent to perform it? So there's a lot of systems on the market, a lot of third-party providers that are out there that are doing some amazing things with pass-through technology. But again, even recently, there's a great SCRS video that came out on an ADAS and calibrations that Toby Chess was in, and it talks about how there's still a lot of requirements and knowledge that needs to be in the shop, even when you're using one of these third-party people, that you've got to have tooling and equipment as well. So, my resources. Obviously, everything that we do, we start on the RTS iCar portal every day, just for general knowledge and information. But before I begin to write an estimate, that's where I go. I want to have that information in a high-level format for me. iCar does a wonderful job of sorting through what the OEs put out and giving us some news, some press releases, some things that help us kind of on a high level know what we have to do to the car. There are third-party sources for information, such as All Data Collision Advantage. You may have collision information or OE procedures available to you through your estimating system, whatever you have chosen. And then obviously the number one source where we're always going to end up on every repair, where we're going to end up on the OEM website looking for that. All right, so let's take a look at the iCar portal. So we like to start every day there. We talk about it, but definitely I'm always there when I'm writing an estimate. So it's just rts.icar.com. We go into the portal. We'll click OEM information up here at the top, and then we'll come down and we're going to find our emblem, our logo, our grill, so to speak. So we're going to choose Kia right there. Now, as soon as you get to the page, there's a lot of information that iCar has gathered there for you. We've covered that on the shows last year. Everything from the news, what I like to call the old iCar Advantage, which is a little newsletter we used to get to the shop. They've taken that by brand, put all of that information in one place. So if you're searching for something on a particular OE, you're not searching through the database and wading through all the other information. It's just right there for you. I always like to review it, jump to it, see if there's anything out there that's outstanding. What I'm looking for now as an estimator is just a high level of understanding on what's going to be required to fix this vehicle. Maybe this OE has a particular statement on non-repairable bumpers, or there's something out there that can help me kind of drive down my research a little faster, get me to where I need to be to get the estimate right. But as we go through here real quick, you'll see the Kia calibration requirements. We're going to come back to that on the last section of the show when we talk about what we need to be thinking about for scanning and calibrations in the repair center. You'll find the partial replacement guide. This is a great shortcut for me when I'm looking for something. Is there a sectioning available for it? I don't have to spend maybe 20, 30 minutes looking through the OE website, which for me, Kia is a struggle. It's one of the ones that even though I practice and work with, and I've been working with this particular Sorento for a week, it's still, things aren't where I necessarily want them to be or where I feel they should. Things aren't linked the way I would like them to be linked. So being able to know whether I'm going to find something or not and help cut down on that research time is a big help that iCar's provided me there. If there's glass requirements, whether it's fixed glass that requires replacement after removal or install, or there's some particular requirements for after installation, iCar's done a great job of putting that there. But one of the things I always love to come to the RTS portal for is they have put all of the position statements for the OEs in one place. So as soon as I select the OE, and I can go there and find it. I don't have to worry about if it's on OE One Stop or if it's on the crash info site, or if I've got to go look for it on the OE site. They've got them here. Kia has a very limited number of position statements. They are the ones that you expect to see. There's nothing here really that changes the way I write an estimate or thinks about it. They do have, one of the ones to call out is they do have a scanning and requirement position statement. So I know right away, even though I'm going to find the supporting documentation in the repair procedures for my pre and post scan, I do know that this is a particular OE that's going to require them. It's a well-written position statement, so we do appreciate that from them. It's always great when the OE writes a really well-written position statement. Lots of information there, but if you scroll down, so one of the things I tell people not to miss is if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see repair information availability. So this is another section, much like the sectioning procedures, where iCar has kind of gone in and given me the yes/no so that I can save some time when I'm looking for the information that I need. So I know right away that there is material identification and procedures in there for me to go find, that there are seam sealers, foams, and adhesive information So not only where it's at, what the replacement requirements of it is, and then what is the brand or make, model number, whatever that the OE is calling out for me to use. That there are some structural sectioning procedures, which will be good to know. But I know right away that I have a weld through primer requirement, I have a corrosion requirement, and then there are some stationary glass issues that I have to have, which from my previous photo, I already know that I'm going to be replacing that door. I'm going to be blending on that quarter. It means that quarter glass is going to have to come out. It's a fixed stationary piece of glass. I need to make sure that I look up the glass procedures from Kia as well. I can click here. It'll take me immediately to the location within the Kia website that they have those particular documents and everything gathered. So if you have your Kia login, if you are already signed up or you're not just a one-time use user, you can click in and out. I keep the RTS portal up all day long. But at some point, no matter what, we are going to end up in the OE website. So as I'm in here, I can decode my VIN up here. It'll tell me what my vehicle, my engine size is. I could go immediately into search tips if I wanted to, type in a keyword, just like we've done with most of the OEs. If there's something specific I'm looking for. I will tell you a tip for working with Kia, less is more. So if I'm looking for blind spot calibration, if I type in blind spot calibration, I'm not finding the document I need. If I just type in calibration, I find the document I need. So while some OEs, like Honda last month, had a very all-encompassing search capability with some tips and some tricks, we don't have this with Kia, so just keep in mind if you're looking for something and you're frustrated thinking you can't find it, maybe take some words out of your search parameters and you'll find what you need. But we'll go over here to the left-hand side and we're going to click this vehicle information. One key tip you want to have is copy and paste that VIN. You're going to want to keep it handy. As you navigate in and out of different sections of this website, your VIN will fall out and you will occasionally need to put that back in. So we'll go into the vehicle info. As you can see, even though I've already decoded my VIN, it's asking me for that VIN again, and I'll enter it here. So if I wanted to know the build sheet, what this vehicle was equipped with, obviously I can hit that vehicle specification and it'll tell me what's on the car. Keep in mind, again, just like we had covered last week, there's some valuable information there, but as more and more options, specifically around advanced driver assist systems and convenience packaging, become standard equipment on vehicles, they will not necessarily be listed on the build sheet. So the absence of them on the build sheet does not mean the car is absent of them. So sometimes, particularly with Kia, what we have to do is we'll go to the OE website for consumer facing, and we'll learn what standard packages and things are available on vehicles. And you'll find a lot of times, even not on the vehicle specification sheet, the vehicle is equipped with it. So as an estimator, you're still going to want to make sure you go out and do the physical inspection, specifically in your blueprinting department, and make sure you're aware of everything that's there. From here, I'm going to hit this red box that says DTC Guide Manual for the Sorento. It's going to pull up a secondary box here for me, and across here I'm going to see 4 available manuals for me to do research in. There's the shop guide. This is where you're going to find anything that is not necessarily a welded replacement procedure, so to speak. So if I want to know how to take a door handle off or take the hood off, or if I'm looking for something around aiming a mirror or whatever, that all tends to reside here in the shop manual. The ETM manual is my wiring guides. DTCs are just what they say. Those are your trouble codes that would come off. And then the body manual is really specific to collision repair. The trick here is that it's only going to give you the things that are for part replacement procedures around collision, and that typically comes in my welded panels. Everything that's that was considered a trim panel, which they're listing the hood, the doors, the deck lids, etc. That's all over in the shop manual. So when I have a lot of people tell me that they have problems finding stuff with Kia, they're going to that body manual, thinking collision, not finding what they need, and then assuming that it's not there. So for us, we spend a majority of our time in those 2 manuals. In those 2 manuals is where we're going to find everything that I, as an estimator, need to go back and forth on to write a complete and accurate appraisal, but also help guide my body technician in the repair and then ensure that the shop's properly compensated. So what do we need to know? Right now, just out of the cursory glance at the photos, and as I begin my research process, I know I have a pre-measure, I know I have a pre-scan, a battery disconnect restraints. I'm going to be going through sensor removal, my safety checks. What are they? What do I need to do? That rocker It's going to be going on and off the car, so I've got some welding. I need to be looking for my welding requirements. We're replacing the door. What all is involved in that? A door is one of the things that I see people make a lot of mistakes on. We just assume it's a door, right? I'm just replacing a door shell. What could I possibly need to do? And we forget about all the electronics that are involved, specifically in front doors. Not so much necessarily in the rear doors these days, but there's a lot of technology in the front doors that we need to be aware of. I've got some glass removal, and I've got some door strip processes. I'm going to be stripping the front door, and remember, as soon as I start to strip the front door, that is the same as replacing the front door. And then I'm going to be stripping down that quarter panel for that. So the secret to ensuring that you get all of this right, whether it's any OE process or any OE website, is that you begin to build a process map for the repair. And when we say that, what it is as an estimator, I need to start going through every step, everything that I think it's going to take to get the car in the facility, repaired, and then out of the facility. And as I go through each of those steps, now I'm matching that with some procedures that are in the guides, in the website, and that's gonna help me do that. So where do I start? So I thought, we did this last month, and I got a lot of questions on, Kristen, what do you mean process the repair? And this is really what it is. So I begin, quite honestly, at the top of my list with transport. I've got to get the vehicle from wherever it was dropped off, whether the customer drove it and left it in front of my shop, or it got towed in on a rollback. I've got to get it into the shop and into the blueprint bay. What is it going to take? Is the vehicle drivable or non-drivable? How much labor is going to be involved to get it in there? Are there any specific safety concerns, any tear down, or anything I'm going to have to do to get it there? And then I've got my pre-measure and my pre-scan. I've got to perform those, and then I've got to interpret those. So if we go back to the Kia website, and we're in Kia and we're thinking about what do we need to know right now for those, I go into my body repair. I'm going to click the drop down here, and I'm going to see now body repair manual. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to go into that general information tab. This is the first thing that I want to overview as I go. If you read this where it says guidelines and general precautions, you're going to see where Kia tells you that they've specifically designed their vehicles to absorb energy and to transfer it around. And because of that, there are some inspection considerations that you need to make sure that you pay attention to, specifically around original strength and geometry. And that if you don't get that right, well, then the vehicle's not going to be safe. So in essence, what Kia is telling you is pre-measure our cars. Specifically when you've had one that's hit that you know may change the safety and strength and function of those panels. So right away we know now that we've got to do our pre-measure. Kia is going to give us some guidelines around, I now know that I've got to take the battery out to do that. That starts on my process map, drives me down thinking about different things that I need to start adding and researching. Kia does a really good job here, as you can see, of telling us where sensors are located. I know that I have a bag deployment. But now I know that I also have sensors in the front driver door, and my rear sensor is located on the quarter. So as I begin to do my tear down and think about where I've got to access those sensors to disconnect them, Kia has a statement that says that if you have a sensor in the area of impact, very similar to General Motors, that you need to replace those. So I would definitely now have a sensor in the area of impact. I'm going to need to get that. My pre-tensioners and my check procedures for those are all listed here. And then Kia does a really great job of driving me down and telling me about any adhesives. It calls out what is considered and approved for those adhesives, so I can start thinking about my material guidelines, and tells me what my application requirements are. How thick, how much, how wide, and where it needs to go. So an important document for us to go over, and always make sure as we're driving through the process map in our brain, and we're driving that and then taking that and interpreting that over into the estimating system. I always like to tell people the estimating system is just my secretary. I tell it what I want it to do, and it does that for me. So I don't just go into the estimating system and click and go, hey, gee, I wonder what they're going to pay me to do this today. So now as we go, we've done that. We've researched through the Kia procedures. We know what we have to do. We now know that we have battery disconnect, and we know that we have restraints testing. So what does that trigger? And then I'm going to go through and do a little bit more research into the OEs as I drive this down. So as I'm picking the repair procedures as an estimator, it's then telling me what I need to go find. Too often, when I sit down and work with estimators that are struggling with OE procedures, they're kind of just going into the OE system and going, okay, show me what I need to know, and not specifically doing their research. So it makes it a whole lot easier when you do that. So let's go back into Kia, pull back up our repair manual, and start thinking about, well, what would we do if we needed to do a battery disconnect? So if we're in our shop manual and we go into our electrical system, we go into the charging system, and then we choose battery here. We can go into the specifications around the battery, what we know the battery should be performing and how it works. We can go into the repair procedures. And so one of the first things you notice on this battery procedure is that it does require for you to make some removal of some parts to get to it. So you're gonna have some extra R&I steps on your estimate that you would wanna make sure you consider. So if you were used to going to battery and just clicking the R&I and it gives you the 0.3 or the 0.4 that's there, I've got an air duct that's gonna have to come out, so I'm gonna make sure I do that as well. Every little bit helps, and we wanna make sure that the technician's properly compensated for the work that he's gotta do. You go down here through the procedures. Now, the one thing I'm looking for when I'm disconnecting a battery is, usually the disconnection and the storage of the battery is the simple part. It's what the disconnection of the battery triggers that we have to perform once the battery goes back in that we need to do. And as you go through this procedure through Kia, it does not unlearn a lot of things on the car. So if you've looked at other things that we've done with other OEs, disconnection of the battery triggers an alignment and a whole lot of other things that need to be done. As you go through this with Kia, those notices are not there. So as long as you follow the reconnection procedures, the car will do what it needs to do. We did follow up because obviously that stuff makes me nervous. Like I said, Kia didn't have some things where I wanted it to be. I like that the other OEs really put that right there for me. Kia didn't make it clear. So we went through and then did a lot more research under the specific ADAS systems and said, okay, if this vehicle had been equipped, which this vehicle wasn't, if this vehicle had been equipped with these things, even though it doesn't say it here in the battery repair procedures, would it show up in those procedures as well? And when we got into the calibrations, which we'll cover a little bit later, we didn't find there what we needed. But as you can see, Kia's got everything lined out where you need it. You just got to go back and forth between the two manuals to find what you need. And be the same with the restraint systems. So if we wanted to get in here and search restraint, we could find that. We could search for seat belt if we were wanting to know what our seat belt procedures were. And if there was any required testing, such as the seat belt or measure the steering column or any of that, we would be able to search that fairly easy and get our information. But again, Kia makes it pretty simple. There was not a lot here to do. Obviously, because we have a deployment where we're going to be replacing the SRS module, we're going to be replacing the deployed bags, and we're going to be doing a system test there, just pretty standard, what I would consider the airbag matrix. But as we dug through, there was not anything there that was really surprising to me or surprising to the guys as we discussed this back and forth. So let's talk about our technicians. If we go back to the shop and our technicians, once the vehicle is out to them, we've done our estimate, we've done everything that we need to do to prepare this Kia, and let's say for the sake of training, this vehicle is repairable and it's going to go into my technician now. What are the resources that a tech has? Well, as an estimator, I have a lot of resources, but as a technician, I really have one. My resources as a technician is the OE website. And when I get to that website, that's going to tell me what I have to do to repair the car. I tell technicians the same thing. It's you're recreating the same process map, the same process through your head that helps you drive the research that you need to make sure that you've got everything you need to fix the vehicle. A lot of times for some shops, the estimator is supplying all that documentation. It comes in a nice packet, whether it be a printed packet that goes with the car, or some shops now have servers that they're placing those packages in through ROs, and the technicians are able to access them. If that works, and that's a system you have, but if you're a technician that actually has to go into the OE system and do your own research, again, same process. Start with how you're going to begin to fix the car. So as this car comes into my stall, it's been pre-measured, it's been pre-scanned, and one of the first things I'm going to start doing is removing the parts and doing the things I need to do, get ready to do the repair. First thing for me would be I'm going to take that door off. So I start to think through that and what's it going to take to remove that door. And once I remove that door, what does it trigger in the vehicle that I have to start being accountable for? What tooling is required for me to perform the operations? Are there any one-time use parts? Anything that I need to know from that perspective? So let's just talk about the rear door. So that's our primary replacement part on this vehicle. That would be where I would begin my research. We're going to go back into Kia. And again, I like to use the search feature. Because the door is not something that's a welded component, it is not in this body manual. There are a few little documents there about dimensions. So if we wanted to take a tram gauge and X out the door, Kia does provide some really great diagrams and some really great measuring for you there. But again, we're not going to be in the body manual with Kia because it's a bolt-on part. It's going to be in the shop manual. So everything I need to know about the door, the rear door trim, rear door repair procedures, it's all right there. And I can jump right into it and walk through. Great thing about Kia, they have reusable parts. And the only indication they have as we go through this is that if clips are broken, obviously replace them. So I do have some torque requirements that I'm going to need to know as I begin to put the vehicle back together. But nothing as we went through this that was non-reusable parts or triggering any sort of calibrations or that needed to be done until we get into the front door. Had this vehicle been equipped with all the ADAS systems, detrimming the front door triggered a lot of things that would have needed to happen for this vehicle. So as the tech, I'm just going to keep going through that. Well, I know if I replace the door right, well, then I'm going to have to reseal that new door when it comes in. I'm going to have some corrosion protection there. So if I just choose sealing, not all OEs like to call things seam sealer. And we go into the body manual because this seam sealing and has to do with replacement parts as well, but I can go in here and I can see sealing locations. Obviously it brings that up for me, and then it tells me my door. And I've already looked in my general manual and I know what materials specifically this OE calls out as acceptable materials to use, but now I know where all my sealing locations are. It's given me the diagrams earlier, so that I know how, in that general, I know how big the bead needs to be. You know, obviously, we're going to try to match what we have, but if I, for some reason, had a door with no comparative, they give me the diagrams that I need. I know exactly where it's got to go, front and rear door. And then, well, obviously, anytime we replace a door, we're going to have some cavity wax that needs to go in there, or a hood. So I can go in and choose corrosion protection, do my search, go back into the body manual, and it'll tell me corrosion protection and I've got 3 choices there. I've got undercoating, anti-vibration pads, and cavity wax. So obviously if I wanted to choose cavity wax, I can go down till I find my doors and find the requirements of that as well, so that when that vehicle gets back out of paint, before I do all of the retrimming of the panels, I can ensure that I meet my requirements for corrosion protection. Now let's talk about the painters. So for years, I think we used to joke too much about paint was the only thing that couldn't kill you in the body shop. But nowadays, with a lot of requirements around specific OEs, the refinishing process is as involved and technical as maybe the repair process or the sectioning processes that need to be done. And so painters, as well as body techs and estimators, need to be thinking about OEM procedures and if that vehicle that they're about to paint has anything special that has to do with it. Maybe it's a millage requirement. So for painters, you have 3 resources. So you get a little bit more resources than the body tech does. You can obviously go to the OEM and to their website, but your paint companies are doing a fabulous job these days of making you aware of any special requirements. Those special requirements may not just be around application limitations, but it may be application directions. So that may change a process, whether you've got a hard color that requires sanding to 1,000 versus just regular 400. On the panel prep, anything that's going to help the estimator, but anything that helps you for the time and the labor that you're going to have in the paint department to do that job properly. And then you have your distributor. So your distributors these days are working really hard to try to help gather all that information for you and be a resource when that car comes in. Now, as we discussed earlier, as soon as I decode that VIN in the system, obviously it's going to tell me the paint code, get the paint code off the car. We strongly recommend that in the blueprinting process, the painter is notified of what's available or necessarily what's available, what's going to be coming to them. at a later date, so they can go ahead and begin looking for any issues that might pop up on that car, anything that's going to help you in the estimating process. But also if I have any tricky colors or I need to get any extra resources, I've got the time. I don't want my research process as a painter to begin when that car hits the paint shop, because I've got a cycle time issue and I need to get that car out, and I don't want to stall because I've got a problem there. On this vehicle, wasn't a whole lot of paint code selections there, so a lot of the OEs, like I said, are driving down. No crazy colors in the Kia model this year, so nothing like what we see with Mazda and some of the other manufacturers, or Lexus. We didn't have a color that was necessarily a call out. There are a couple of colors that Kia has that have been known to have a problem for painters when it comes to matching, blending, etc. But nothing really here that was crazy. As we went through the Kia website, Kia has no anti-chip call out specifications for their hoods, rear view mirrors, or bumpers that needed to be considered. And Kia did not have a millage limitation. So as we searched through for ADAS and for bumper covers, plastics replacements, Kia did not have anything in there around controlling paint film thickness or non-repairability, etc. They did have some repairability limitations to plastic, but they didn't have any call-outs there on those for the painter. All right, so let's talk about calibrations. And we do believe that that's that new department in the body shop, that you're going to end up with an employee that's their full-time job. It's way more than just being able to hook up a scan tool. There is a lot involved. And Kia is no exception as an OE. With certain systems that their vehicles are equipped with, the calibration procedures are involved. And there is some tooling and equipment that is required. So let's get right back into the Kia website for this. Again, just as a demonstration, if I wanted to do blind spot calibration, and I enter that as my search parameters for information, let's say I've got a car, in particular this one, let's say it was equipped, it would be behind that bumper. It's right under the tail light pocket for Kia, which is a really interesting location for them to have it. But if I had to do anything, as you can see, if I type in blind spot calibration, I get 0. So I got a lot of zeros going through here. But if I simply just take out calibration from my search parameters, or take out blind spot and just have calibration as my search parameters, well, look how many things come up. So obviously I know that's part of my shop manual. And if I go down through here, well, one of the first documents that pops up is blind spot detection radar calibration. So again, like I said, it was one of the most frustrating things for me for Kia is if I type in blind spot and calibration, I still don't understand why it can't serve this document up to me. So if you're thinking you're not finding something, maybe you're using too much of what we call a long tail search, too many words, and subtract that down. So if I just get into calibration here and go through the Kia procedures, Kia does have this really nice kit. It is called out in there with a part number that you can do that helps for that. Again, that's a kit you're going to have in addition to whatever scan tool and scan servicing that you do. We discussed on last month's show over and over, as we get more involved in what some of these things are required, either a third-party service that's equipped. We know there are some mobility companies that will come to your shop if they do have all this equipment and they are equipped with it, or even just sending the vehicle to the dealer. It's easy to buy a tool. It's hard for me to get all the other required targets and tooling that's required, as well as train a technician to do all this. We're struggling with a lot of that in the shop now, just finding a C or a B grade technician for collision repair now, all of this. But as you walk through the procedure, again, a little bit fancier of a plumb bob, but we're still working on a plumb bob. And then you'll come down here to the aiming procedures. What I thought was really interesting here is that Kia calls out this specific tool, this digital inclinometer that you're supposed to have that measures the angles and everything. Another tool that you have to purchase, another tool that I know I don't have in my facility. So if I had to do a Kia, because I don't have this tool, even though I think I might be pretty good with a plumb bob and measuring some tape out on the floor, this thing's still going to have to go somewhere else for me because I don't have this particular tooling that they're asking for. If I had a mobility company in my neck of the woods, that might be a good thing. But you can go through here and you get the full calibration procedures. Again, doesn't require a whole lot of targeting. The system works off just make sure the aim. There is a road test required for that. As you get into their lane departure systems, we could go back. Search through lane departure. A little bit more of an involved calibration procedure for that. They don't call it calibration in the document. They call it the repair procedures for lane departure. But now a very involved targeting system that is required, as well as some minimum distance and measurements for that. So again, like one of the things we wanted to stress this year is that the scan tool is the most simplest thing that I do in the collision repair center, whether I buy one that's what would considered an aftermarket tool or a pass-through tool, or if I'm OE, dedicated and maybe I have the OE tool. There's still a lot of other tooling that goes with it that's going to be required. And having a technician that focuses on this, we think of what all's involved just in the welding portions of being a collision repair technicians, and the studying that's involved with that, the studying and the knowledge and the equipment that's required to do these ADAS systems and recalibrate them are involved. And so it's really going to become a full-time job for somebody that understands setting up, I like to go back to this target, setting up that target, making sure it's in the right position, that it is the right one, and then going through the process with the scan tool so that the car and the targets are talking to each other. This is the one thing that keeps me up at night. Pretty good, just when I thought we were getting pretty good with finding all the repair information we needed for putting the panels on the vehicles. Now this is getting more and more complicated for us. So I hope you enjoyed the Kia show. As you can tell, Kia has a few little nuances. Going through and completing the estimate on this Sorento, even though obviously it was a total loss, we spent about 80% of our time in the shop manual, not over in the body repair or collision manual. So keep that in mind when you are searching for Kia information. What you think may not exist because you've been in the collision manual may be over on the body side. If you do use the Kia search parameters, the search boxes, remember, keep it small. The more words you put in there, the less documents you find, and it doesn't necessarily find the document that you were looking for. So keep in mind that blind spot example where we just typed in calibration and we found it, but blind spot calibration, we couldn't find what we needed. If you have any questions about Kia, while I may not be your best source of information, we sure can get you in contact with the people that can help you find everything you need to know if you are running into some search issues or you have questions. We can always get a hold of the people at iCar within the RTS portal, and they would be happy to raise any issues or concerns. When it comes to estimating, if something's missing on a Kia and you think it's there, well, we highly encourage that you visit the DEG, the Database Enhancement Gateway, and send in an inquiry, and Danny and the team from DEG will be happy to take that up. We'll be back next month with another OE, and we'll be looking at rear end damage on General Motors. Thanks.